So I feel like starting a company, little goes as planned initially. What was you guys' biggest surprises the first couple of years getting your businesses off the ground?
You have to know people and it happens in any industry, but especially in my industry with food, like you have to know people, and it doesn't matter how great your product is. If you don't know people, then good luck.
So what did you do? Did you have connections before you started your company, or was it just hustling after you started it to build that network?
So I realized that once I went full time, I really needed to know people, and I didn't. So I was looking for a business partner that did, and then I found him, and he knows everyone.
Very smart. Joe?
I had worked for a lot of startups before, and not really a lot surprised me. I think for us, it was finding out who we are and what our values were was kind of the most surprising. As people who, as someone who lived in LA before, coming here was a culture shock to me in a lot of ways. I think that was probably the biggest surprise, is just being used to people who are just career orientated. Most people who move to LA, they're moving there for their career, whether it's in tech, film, anything else. That's why they're moving there. And so it was very different here because people have different values here. Family is a lot more important, and some other things are more important. So that was probably the biggest shock for me.
What brought you here initially?
My business partner was getting married, and I was kind of burnt out on LA, so I was like, I'll try Milwaukee. So my first, we started the company. I lived out there, he lived here, and he was like, move back. I lived here for a little bit before. He was like, move back, and I was like, okay, but I don't know about the winters. And so the first winter I moved back was the polar vortex winter, which I never experienced that amount of cold. And so I was back for about 6 weeks. I flew to California to visit friends, back to California to visit friends. And what happened was the polar vortex hit, my flight got canceled because of cold, which I didn't know was possible, but it is. So I stayed out there for a lot longer than I intended. It didn't come back till it got about 60 degrees. And now I've been able to manage the winters a little bit better, but I still travel a lot in the winter.
Yeah. Cool, and we'll get to that in a few questions, just talking about the pros and cons of starting a business in Milwaukee and how it's different from the coast. But before we do that, Dom, what was your biggest surprise starting a business?
A lot, I think everything. When I first got started, I was just young, inexperienced. I had never really had a real job. So managing people was crazy. I never did sales, so doing sales was crazy. I never built out any kind of software before, so that was crazy. But I think the craziest part was just how hard you have to hustle to go out and get the first customers or to make something work. So I think, like perseverance was key in that first stage.